Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chair Shots to the Cranium. I am your host, Stephen Goforth. Before we jump into this interview with Bullet Bob Armstrong, I'd like to remind all of you to go follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. That's Chair, the number 2, Cranium, Chair 2 Cranium on Instagram and on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube or YouTube channel, Chair Shots to the Cranium. You can also find us on all major platforms for podcasting, Apple, Google, Spotify. So go check us out, subscribe, get alerts as to when we'll have new episodes dropping out there for you to listen to. My most recent episode, episode 30, was the Cranium Correspondence, where I talk about a lot of different topics in the world of wrestling going on right now. Since that time, so many other things that have happened. I'll come out with another Cranium Correspondence before our Wrestlemania predictions coming up next week, believe it or not. Wrestlemania is just around the corner, so look out for the prediction show that myself and Addison will be doing, keeping track of what our records are. She's got a little edge on me right now on the predictions, so let's see if I can't dethrone her this coming week, or will she increase that lead on our prediction show. So don't miss it. We got a lot of matches to talk about and a lot of matches to predict for WrestleMania. It's shaping up to be an outstanding show. So again, go follow us. Give us your support. I greatly appreciate you listening to this interview. Go check out the website, chairshotstothecranium.com. Again, chairshotstothecranium.com. A lot of cool links on that website that you can go check out. One of those being prowrestlingtees.com/chairshotstothecranium. Go get your very own merch. Support us. Wear it around town. Be the talk of town. Be the talk at wrestling shows when you go and wear that t-shirt. People will love it, I promise you. So go check it out. Cannot thank you enough for your support. And without further ado, let's head right into my interview with the WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. Bullet Bob Armstrong. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Chair Shots to the Cranium Interviews. I'm Stephen Goforth. My guest today is one of the greatest of all time in professional wrestling. He has brought so much excitement and innovation to the wrestling ring since 1960. He's won countless championships throughout his stellar career. He introduced all 4 of his sons to professional wrestling and became a WWE Hall of Famer in 2011. It's my honor to speak with the one and only Mr. Bullet Bob Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, how are you today?
Fine, thank you, and thank you for all those compliments. I didn't know who you were talking about there for a second.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You deserve every one of them.
Thank you.
So you recently had your very last match in professional wrestling. I'm sure you had a ton of emotions going through you during that last match. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Let me clear that up for you. That was my last match in Pensacola. I've got a few more. I've promised promoters, and I'm not going to let them down. But I'm reading them out one at a time. It was my last match in Pensacola. I'm sorry about people misunderstanding that, but Brian did come down. Road Dogg came down and introduced me for my last match, and I appreciate him doing that. But that was our hometown where we live here in Pensacola at the fairgrounds. But I got a couple of 3 more shots, and I'm going to fulfill my obligations.
Oh, that's great. So at least we get to see you in the ring again.
I hope so.
That's great. That's great. So what's next for you after professional wrestling? Are you going to stay involved, or are you going to, to some degree, or are you just going to step away completely?
No, I could never do that. I had my first match in 1963, actually my first professional match in 1963, and it's just after 55 years, and this October will be 56. It's you can't just shuck that. So they've offered me a job as commissioner here in Pensacola, and I'm really thinking seriously about that, and also commissioner for a couple other outfits, and I'm thinking about those too. So I will still be involved if I can. I don't ever want to be away from what I love.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, all 4 of your sons were very successful in professional wrestling. What a blessing that must have been for you to share your love of wrestling with all of your sons. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it was getting to know your family besides just being a father. I got to know my sons as partners, as friends, as brothers, and it was just that's priceless, absolutely priceless. I learned so much by knowing them closely like that.
Sure.
And being partners, you always got somebody that's going to be there when you tag them. They're there for you in more ways than one. So it was something that was absolutely priceless. You just can't really describe. There are no words to describe how wonderful that was.
Well, your son Brian, better known as Road Dogg and DX, is about to join you in the WWE Hall of Fame, and you guys are just the fourth father-son group to be in the Hall of Fame, which is a tremendous accomplishment. How does it feel to see him experience such a wonderful accomplishment, and are you going to be able to be there?
I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be able to be there or not. I'm fighting bone cancer, and I'm not going to take any chemotherapy or anything like that. I'm just going to let nature take its course. But so far, I'm winning the battle. And it's a funny thing. You say the father and son, we were the fourth. I don't know what number we were in the Marine Corps, but in 1957, I joined the Marines, and I made Outstanding Man out of Paris Island.
Wow.
And then 30 years exactly later, in 1987, my son Brian also made Outstanding Man, and I got to go see him graduate because of that. And
wow.
That was a wonderful thing, too. So we kind of joined at the hip in a few father and son deals.
Yeah, no doubt. And then listen, I've heard Paris Island. That is that's tough. That is a tremendous accomplishment.
Well, thank you so much.
So tell me about the moment you found out you were going into the Hall of Fame, and how was that Hall of Fame experience for you?
I thought they had the wrong number. No, I'm kidding. It shocked me so bad I had to say, well, now, who is this? Now, what are you talking? It took me a minute to get through all and process it in my old brain, and when I did, it was just pure elation. I was just so happy that they recognized you, for all. I'd been in so long, and then to get it that late, it meant twice as much to me. I wear this ring with honor, and I'm just proud to be a part of their Hall of Famers.
So I'm sure you've talked about this experience many times already, but for fans who may not know how you come up with Bullet in your name and why you wore a mask for part of your career, tell them about that experience and how it came about.
Well, in 1982, I think it was, the weights fell on my face, and it changed my appearance completely from then on. And I never kind of got used to the new face, and I didn't know how people felt about it. And Gordon Soley, who was, known as the Dean of Professional Wrestling, he was said one time when I was ready, he said, he's faster than a speeding bullet, and we had a big laugh about it. And later on, people remembered that, and so when I had a chance to put that mask on in a special deal we did right here in Dothan, Alabama, then I got to put that mask on, and I've never taken it off. I feel comfortable with it, and the people that knew me before, they don't know the difference. So it's just been a real godsend for me, and I love wearing that mask.
I saw an interview that you had with Jake the Snake Roberts some time ago, and he kind of went into detail about what happened with the weights, and it hit your face, and it dang near it really just took your whole nose off, didn't it?
Yeah, it tore up they found my nose in the corner of the gym that afternoon after that happened. We worked out in the morning. I had Ronnie Garvin with me, and Pistol Pez Watley and my son Bradley. It was so funny. I had too much weight and a bench that wasn't nailed to the floor. I used to using the heavy weights, but always the bench was nailed to the floor. This one wasn't, and it was my fault completely because I did not check to see if it was nailed to the floor. And I had 185 pounds, and when I threw it back over my head, the whole bench just flipped out from under me, and it hit me right in the teeth and tore everything from there up.
Wow.
Broke every bone in my face. What was funny, I got up, it didn't knock me out, it knocked me goofy, and I said, Brad, is something wrong with my face here? It feels funny. He almost fainted. He turned white, and he said, Dad, do not look in the mirror. Well, of course, I had to look in the mirror. When I did, all I saw was two ugly black holes in the middle of my face.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that wasn't much fun, but, everybody said, old Bob's finished, and I thought it was finished, and then I just got ashamed of myself for not giving it the 100% deal, so one morning I cried for 2 weeks, just feeling sorry for myself, looking out my big picture window down here in Gulf Breeze, and finally I called Scott, and I said, Scott, come out to the gym with me and hold this tracheotomy in my throat, because I didn't know if I lifted weights if it'd fly out or not. He said, no, we can't do that now. I said, yes, you can. So he stood behind me and put his hands on both sides of the tracheotomy with each hand, and I started doing curls, and 6 months later I was back in the ring, and I wouldn't take anything for that.
Wow, what a tremendous comeback. That is an awesome story. Now, you had the chance to be in a tag team with all your sons at some point in your career. I'm sure all those matches were extremely special to you. Are there certain matches that stood out to you as more memorable?
Well, I have special something special with each and every one of them. We had special matches. Smoky Mountain, I got to team with two of my sons at the same time, Scott and Steve, and that was a special time for me. We all got the same colored outfits and everything, and it really something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And so I tag team with Brad. I had tag team with him for 32 years. He started when he was 18, and every match I had with him was just fun to watch him because technically he was probably one of the best I've ever seen. And Road Dogg, when he got out of the Marine Corps, we had a chance to wrestle partners several times, and he's just funny to be around. He's just a great guy, and I'm real proud of him.
A lot of your matches took place in National Wrestling Alliance. Who were some of your best opponents during that time?
Oh, gosh, Dick the Bruiser. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going way back now, and I was a nervous wreck because he was about twice my size, and it was something to wrestle a national star like that. And I remember that specifically. And Gene Kaniski was a big hockey player, world champion from Canada. He almost beat my brains out. He was one of the toughest I've ever wrestled. I wrestled a lot of world champions, Terry Funk, Dory Funk. Jack Brisco was a sensational wrestler. And Ric Flair. I had several matches with him. And so I got to experience all those world champions, and they all had something special about them. Something special, and they all deserved the title, world champion. So
well, I'm sure you pushed them to their absolute limit during those matches. But were there any that pushed you to your limit?
All of them. Every world champion I ever wrestled pushed me to my limit, but they got the best out of me, and it was all over. When I'd get over the match 2 or 3 days later, and my body would stop aching, I'd say I wouldn't take anything for wrestling a world champion.
Now, you spent a lot of your career as well, or some of your career, I should say, in Georgia Championship Wrestling. What was it like wrestling for them, and what matches there stood out as some of your favorites?
Oh, yes, I had some great matches for them, and that was every Saturday morning at Ted Turner Station, and that was and we'd wrestle for 2 hours, sometimes 3, because they'd tape one to put it in the can in case somebody got hurt or something. So it was a great adventure. I got to meet the big cat Ernie Ladd. I became very close friends with him, and all the guys wanted to be on that channel because it was, I think, 42 states it went to, almost the whole country.
Yeah.
And, foreign countries too. So Ted Turner had a station that went everywhere. So it was and we got to see all the stars. They would bring them in, and I'd get to meet them, and it was just something else. I just had a special dream. I've lived a dream, but I really lived a dream, and I thank God for it every night.
Like July 14th, 1984. Now that's known as Black Saturday in professional wrestling. That's when Vince McMahon purchased Georgia Championship Wrestling. Were you still there? And if you were, what do you remember about that day?
No, I wasn't there at the time. My son Brad was, and then later he taught when they had their school in Atlanta. They had a wrestling school there, and Brad was the first one they called to be a teacher there because he was just very good technically. But I wasn't there at the time. I was here on the Gulf Coast and just found a place that I love, being close to the ocean, so I missed all that.
Well, I'm sure that had to be a shocker to a lot of the guys with Vince coming in. It certainly was a shocker as a fan watching and seeing him pop up on that show, Vince that is. I can't imagine what everybody was thinking during that time.
No, it was a shock to everybody. But Vince threatened to roll. What happened here? Here's exactly what happened. Ted called me in his office one day, and he said, "Listen, why aren't we wrestling in Lansing, Michigan, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Ohio?" He pointed all the places that were, would be great crowds and had a lot of population. And I tried to explain to him, since I was old NWA, that doesn't belong to us. That's claimed by other people, other organizations. He said, "Why?" He's a businessman. He didn't understand why.
Right.
So we went up north, and Brad went with me, and I handled all the guys. And then Vince started running. It just became a big hullabaloo, and Vince won the war. He had a great production, and when it was all over, he stood tall.
I mean, if you go back and look at that Georgia Championship Wrestling roster, I mean, it was unbelievable, the talent that came through there. And obviously Vince noticed that, which is why he said, look, I got to have this. But, I encourage fans, when you're listening to this, go and look up, just Google Georgia Championship Wrestling. You'll see it on Wikipedia, I think, roster on there. It's crazy how many good guys went through there.
Oh, absolutely. The talent pool was never at a low point. It was always top drawer talent and great to work with. And then, you know, we were busy at that time, too. We did a TV 2 hours in Atlanta, and then we drove to Columbus, Georgia. That area down there was on fire, and we did another hour TV there, and then we drove to a town and wrestled that night. By Sunday, there was nothing much left of us. We had to rest all day.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Gordon Soley earlier. Do you have any good Gordon Soley stories you could tell us?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, Gordon Soley, I was in Knoxville. He called me to pick him up at the airport. And he had been drinking all night with Buddy Colt and had a party and everything. And he was a little tipsy. And I said, Gordon, wait right here on these steps at the airport in Knoxville. I said, do not move. I'll be right back to get you. So I jumped in my car. As I pulled back up, I saw a huge crowd right where he had been standing. And I jumped down and ran up and I asked the policeman, what happened? He said, well, Gordon Soley's had an accident here. Oh, and his nose was bleeding. His cheek was bleeding. He'd fallen right off the step.
Oh, no way.
First on the street. And our TV started an hour and a half. But we had a hell of a makeup lady. And she fixed him up where you could barely tell he had fallen on his face. So that's a memory I have that worked out okay. And he wasn't hurt really bad. It was just a bad fall that he was real lucky he came out of.
Oh, what an awesome story. And thank God for the makeup lady.
Amen.
So tell me about your time in Japan and Korea. You spent some time in the ring over there, right?
Yes, I did. I went to Japan on my first tour with Crazy Luke Graham. He had been there before, and I didn't know. I knew he was a star in New York, and I thought he was from New York. Turned out he was from a little town, Gray, Georgia. It was just a few miles from Macon, where I was a star at the time. They were pushing me as a southern bred boy from Georgia. And so when I met him and I said, how things in New York? He said, I don't live in New York. I'm a Georgia boy. And I was so proud of that because I was nervous about going to Japan anyway. It was my first time. And so he took me by the nose and just led me all around, and it was a wonderful tour. It turned out to be great. And so when Inuki started his own tour over there, it was run by Yakuza. That's Japanese for gangster, and they ran that whole operation for a man called John Baba. He was about a 7-foot Japanese guy, if you can even imagine that. And so I wrestled Inuki several times on my first tour. We were about the same size, and we had great matches. He was really a sensational wrestler. So when he pulled out on his own, nobody would go for him because they were afraid to. And so he called me and told me how it would be that we'd have protection 24 hours a day. They'd have guys standing outside a room, and where we wrestled, I'd only wrestle 3 times a week. That's all, and I'd stay for 6 weeks. So I got an old buddy of mine that wrestled part time. He went with me, and nobody else. I had 3 Mexican boys went, and that was it. So nobody else would go. So, but the thing is, Inuki had married one of their most famous movie stars. And he got married in the Kyo Plaza Hotel, which was the tallest hotel in the world at the time. So he had a lot of backing from Parliament in Japan, and so they didn't touch him. But we still were under guard for the whole trip, and they gave me a nice bonus when I left and told me to come back anytime. And from then on, he went great guns. For the next 30 years, it was a battle between those 2 outfits who was the best. And once in a while, they'd get together and wrestle each other and sell out the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
So it worked out, and nobody got hurt, and I was glad of that. But Korea was a different story. When we got to Korea, Luke and I, on my first tour, they came to our. First of all, we drank the water, which we shouldn't have, but we just passed each other going to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 Jeeps waiting on us. They took all my Pepsi Colas. I'm a Pepsi guy. They took all my cigarettes. They took everything.
Oh, no way! That's awful.
Everything, yes. And then I had to buy their stuff,
Yeah.
And they had 2 Jeeps there, and on the back of those Jeeps was a 10-foot tall plywood of Luke and I. He had his own Jeep, I had my Jeep, and they looked exactly like us. Some artist had painted on the plywood and cut out our body style and made it 10 feet tall. So we rode down the city of Seoul, Korea, with people on the side. They plugged it because they only had wrestling in Korea a couple of times a year. So it was a big thing for them. And they put so many flowers around our neck. We were both so thirsty. We had to drink the water, and boy, was that a mistake. And then we went to Busan. We had to ride a train with a wooden seat that beat us to death. to Busan City, and had 100,000 people the first show, and I think about 80,000 people the second show, and then flew us back to Seoul for the last two shows on an airplane with pigs and chickens, and I'm not kidding you, pigs and chickens on the plane, an old World War II plane that didn't make it over the mountain. He had to turn left, and chickens and pigs went every which way, and we were just holding on to each other praying.
Yeah, no
so
doubt.
When we got back, yes, we got back to Seoul, and we thank God for that. And then they tried to pay us in Korean money. But the kicker was that when we left Japan to go to Korea, they sent a little guy that knew a lot about everything. I never did know who exactly he was or what he was, but his job was to take care of us because the office in Japan in Tokyo had sent us to Korea. So when they tried to pay us in Korean money, they brought two shoe boxes full of money running out the sides on both sides. And I'm not kidding you, it was full, money was falling out. And me and Luke looked at us and said, well, great, that's great. And the little guy from Japan said, Chotomate, which means just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he called us into the room and he said, if you take that money, you might as well throw it out of the airplane when it leaves Korea. It's worth about a nickel on every dollar.
Oh, wow.
So then we had to tell those guys, thanks for the money, but we need American money. Well, there's a little problem there. They didn't want to do that. And I said, well, what do you think, Luke? He said, we're not going out there. The kicker of that was the president, our puppet president, his mother was an invalid, and she loved wrestling. And she got to watch it twice a year, and she wasn't going to miss wrestling. So he had it televised. Now they had put their foot in it. They were televising it, and we weren't going to be there.
Oh,
Needless
no.
to say, in about an hour and a half, they slipped the money under the door. We stuffed it in our boots and everywhere else so we could keep money because the little Japanese guy from Tokyo said they'll come back and steal your money when you go wrestle. And so he was right because our room was ransacked, but we had the money with us.
Oh, wow.
And as we started to leave the next morning after the second night, this big black 49 Cadillac limousine pulled up. Two guys about as wide as they were tall jumped out, ran to the back and opened the door, and this old gentleman got out. I mean an old guy. They helped him out, and he walked up to us, and Luke said, just back up against the wall, Bob. And we were ready, for whatever. But he took out his hand and thanked us in Korean very much. And the guy that was driving the car said, he's thanking you. And I said, thank God, thank him too. So we got out of that mess, and I said, I'll never go back, and I never did.
Yeah, listen. As soon as they took your Pepsi, that was just that was taking it down the road. It didn't need to go down.
And my cigarettes too.
Yeah, if it took my Pepsi, I'm like, I'm out.
That's it, buddy. I'm out.
Wow, what a great story. All right, so you spent a few years in TNA Impact back in the early to mid 2000s. How did that come about? And tell me about your experience there.
You're talking about TNA?
Yes, TNA Impact. Yeah.
We had their first show with them. Brian and I went up there, and Scott was referee. And they had their first show in Huntsville, and it was a great crowd. And I got to meet Toby Keith, and he actually wrestled. He wrestled Jeff Jarrett, and he wasn't half bad. He's a big guy. And it turned out great, and I was the commissioner for him, and I had a good run with them, a great run, and it just turned out that it got to be a little too much for me, flying down to Tampa every week, and I had rather wrestle around close to home. And so, but Brian kept on with them, and we finally fizzled out, and something else always comes up. But it was fun while it was there, while Jarrett was running it. It was great, had good talent, and met a lot of new guys that I hadn't met before. So I really enjoyed that. I got to be good friends with Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
I got to meet him. He was quite the character. And so I got to meet a lot of new guys that I hadn't met before. That was enjoyable.
During your time there, you were involved in a storyline with 4 Live Crew. That group consisted of your son Brian and R-Truth, Conan, and Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
How involved were you in the creation of that storyline?
A lot. I gave them all the input I wanted, and then everybody would throw ideas, and then they'd come up with what they want to do. And if it was not completely crazy, I'd go along with it, and I enjoyed that time.
What a group of unbelievable superstars that was. And a lot of people, some people may have forgotten about that. That's why I wanted to bring that up and of course, and learning your involvement in it. But you got your son Brian and R-Truth and Billy Gunn and Conan. What a great group of wrestlers that was.
Oh, a lot of talent, a lot of talent.
No doubt.
It was sitting there fun to be around, and they were good. Whatever you wanted, they would do it. And I got to wrestle partners with Brian on a couple of angles there against Conan and his boys, and it was just a lot of fun, and it was a lot of action there. And I did enjoy going out to the park while we were televising there. I met Clark Gable.
Oh, nice.
His exact double, they have doubles that drive along
Yeah.
in a Cadillac convertible.
Yeah.
I met Marilyn Monroe. She was gorgeous. So I enjoyed going out in the park, doing my off time, and meeting all the characters. And I got to see a lot of stuff. They slide me right in, let me watch. They were an entertainment, job too. So I had fun.
Well, Mr. Armstrong, this is the cranium shot portion of my interview. I'm going to say a name to you. It's a name from your past, and you can give me a one-word answer. You can be several words, whatever comes to your mind when you hear this name, okay?
Okay.
All right, Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper, one of the best.
Dory Funk Jr.
The best.
Jackie Fargo.
Tough as nails.
Harley Race.
True champion.
Jack Brisco.
Amateur, couldn't be beat.
All right, finally, the assassin Jody Hamilton.
I was married to that guy. He weighed 300 pounds and moved like he weighed 150. He'd be waiting on me a lot of times. We'd do a spot, he'd be waiting on me. He was so fast and so good and so agile. I love that guy. And as we talk right now, I'm looking at his picture with his brother. He was 18 years old, and they were headlining Madison Square Garden. He wrote Friends Forever on that picture, and I've got it where I can look at it every night.
I had a chance to interview Mr. Hamilton. It was an absolute pleasure. I've met him several times, and what a great guy.
Absolutely.
Mr. Armstrong, I cannot thank you enough for taking time to come on our show. Thank you so very much. Congratulations on an unbelievable career, and I wish you the best of luck when you retire and your new endeavors.
You have brought back a lot of memories, and there's a lot more out there, but I'm glad we covered a few of the main events in my memory bank.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Bullet Bob Armstrong. What an absolute pleasure. What a fantastic human being he is. And just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for myself. And very, very proud and honored that he was willing to come on Chair Shots to the Cranium. I encourage all of you again, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, Cheer to Cranium, Cheer to the number 2 Cranium on Instagram and on Twitter. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, to check out all of our other interviews and also future episodes and interviews that'll come down the pipeline. Don't forget, listen up for our prediction show next week for Wrestlemania. Cannot wait. Let's see how me and Addie go. Addison does on our prediction shows. Cannot wait. Thank you again, and thank you for taking another chair shot to the cranium.